I somehow feel most alive when I'm singing.
The musical is one of cinema's most escapist genres, full of big scenes, big feelings, big dreams.
Don't tell me not to fly, I simply got to.
Looking at the movie musical through the years, we can spot some defining patterns. It captures larger-than-life emotion. As Bob Fosse put it, the time to sing is when your emotional level is too high to just speak anymore, and the time to dance is when your emotions are just too strong to only sing about how you feel. Because of all this emotional power, the genre is naturally suited for exploring the agony and ecstasy of love.
Love lifts us up where we belong.
And expressing characters' inner lives.
How do you write a song when the chords sound wrong, though they once sounded right and rare?
Musicals offer a window into what someone is thinking or imagining.
What will they say Monday at school?
Showing us not just how things are, but how they're felt and experienced.
That's how I sometimes see big moments in my life, as musical numbers.
This most showy of mediums is also often about show business.
There's no business like show business.
Which can make the spontaneous song and dance numbers feel less jarring.
I wanna be a producer. Can't see my name, Leo Bloom in lights.
The genre is often associated with fantasy.
Come with me, and you'll be in a world of pure imagination.
The essence of the musical is that it presents an alternate version of reality, one where bright colors dominate and bursting into song is accepted.
What is going on with you, Maria?
I feel pretty, oh so pretty.
But it also reveals that the fantasy life can be just as vivid and important as the real one.
Here's to the fools who dream.
Here's our take on the musical, its purpose, its politics, and why it blurs the line between truth and illusion.
This was a real, truly live place. And I remember that some of it wasn't very nice, but most of it was beautiful.
If you're new here, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified about all of our new videos. This video is brought to you by Mubi, a curated streaming service showing exceptional films from around the globe. It's like your own personal film festival streaming anytime, anywhere. In real life, spontaneously breaking into song is likely to attract some uncomfortable looks.
I am on a lonely road and I am traveling, traveling, traveling.
Likewise, in a movie, it can risk breaking audiences' suspension of disbelief and feeling artificial or cheesy. So what's the point of adding singing and dancing to a film at all?
Why do they start to sing and dance all of a sudden?
I mean, I don't suddenly start to sing and dance.
First, the musical number is an ideal vehicle for delivering an idea.
Songs are kind of like musical essays. You have your thesis statement, which is in the form of the chorus, and then you have your supporting paragraphs, which are the verses and the bridge.
Sometimes this is a relatively simple idea. Take the I Want song, a musical number that is used to quickly communicate a character's goal.
I have a secret desire hiding deep in my soul.
I want to be where the people are.
I want adventure in the great white somewhere.
Musicals can also distill their central theme into a song, as we see in the opening number of Fiddler on the Roof.
Tradition, tradition, tradition.
In other cases, the genre goes beyond presenting an idea to actually pushing an argument. Concept musicals can be seen as a descendant of dramatist Bertolt Brecht's epic theater, which comments on the action and encourages the audience to adopt a critical perspective of their society. In Cabaret, when the Nazis fill up the Kit Kat Club in 1930s Berlin, the movie's final message is a warning that it can happen here, implicitly urging audiences not to be complacent.
You still think you can control them?
The film even begins and ends with the image of a distorted mirror, symbolizing how the story is a commentary on our world, and calling back to the original theatrical production, which included a mirror on stage reflecting the audience. Other movies like Hair and Rent center the perspective of the counterculture movements of their era. Hair harshly criticizes the Vietnam War.
Who knows what stands in front of our lives?
While Rent emphasizes the urgency of the AIDS crisis. A second purpose of the musical is to let us participate in characters' feelings.
My heart wants to sing every song it hears.
Grease's songs express what the characters can't voice to anyone else. From Rizzo revealing how secretly sensitive she is underneath her tough outer shell,
But I can feel and I can cry.
to Sandy and Danny each pining for each other separately.
There's just no getting over you.
I'm in misery.
To the usually optimistic Frenchie processing her secret anxiety that she is not cut out to be a beautician.
You've got the dream, but not the drive.
In Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, when the protagonist Rebecca privately reimagines her experiences as musical numbers,
It's a Jack battle.
A what? A Jewish American princess.
Rap battle.
the result demonstrates how the external events of our lives often feel much more heightened internally. Like when Rebecca's experience of spending Thanksgiving trying to impress her love interest's parents is expressed as an over-the-top, self-hyping Nicki Minaj-style rap called I Give Good Parent.
End of the night, they line up to hug me. Oh my gosh, this was so lovely.
Perhaps most centrally of all, the musical is the realm of fantasies.
I'm the greatest prima donna in Milan.
Characters use song to let their imaginations run wild, losing themselves in the dream of a better life, even if sometimes that stays just a dream.
We'll find a new way of living. We'll find a way of forgiving.
But one of the big takeaways of this genre is that the boundary between fantasy and reality isn't as firm as we might think. In the standout sequence near the end of La La Land, Mia imagines how things could have been with her ex Sebastian, and the film honors how our pasts and our ideas of the life not lived can be just as meaningful as our actual day-to-day. In The Wizard of Oz, when Judy Garland sings the iconic ballad Over the Rainbow about the place where dreams really do come true, this isn't a physical space that exists in reality.
Some place where there isn't any trouble. It's not a place you can get to by a boat or a train.
It's an emotional one, yet that doesn't make it any less needed.
It's about walking toward somewhere. It's about hope.
Dorothy's fantastical Technicolor dream is far more memorable and satisfying than the drab parts of the film depicting her actual life in Kansas. And her dream is connected to that life. It's full of heightened versions of the people she knows, while its lesson
There's no place like home.
is exactly what she needed to understand in order to keep going in her reality.
And I'm not going to leave here ever, ever again. Because I love you all.
In Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, Rebecca's habit of interpreting life through fantasy musical numbers is also eventually affirmed as a productive method of processing what she's going through.
Those songs that you imagine, when you come back, you've always figured something out, right?
Yeah, I guess I've processed something, sure.
Even if a fantasy isn't technically real, the feelings and insights it evokes are. Sometimes it's only in a dream or a reverie that we can access these deeper truths.
Into your arms I long to fly.
I used to dream that I was in a musical. Because in a musical, nothing dreadful ever happens.
The beginning of the movie musical was also the beginning of sound on film.
Wait a minute, you ain't heard nothing yet.
Both arrived with 1927's The Jazz Singer, which already established the movie musical's common narrative of the hopeful, struggling performer who achieves hard-won artistic success. A premise that remains popular to this day.
If I get this.
When you get this.
You gotta give it everything you got. It's your dream.
The Jazz Singer was a box office sensation,
First talking picture novelty, The Jazz Singer. All-time smash in the first week.
paving the way for 1929's The Broadway Melody to become the top-grossing picture of the year and the first sound film to win the Oscar for Best Picture. Despite early successes, though, Hollywood quickly became oversaturated with musicals. More than 100 were released in 1930 alone, while movie studios lost money due to the onset of the Great Depression, and audience interest in the genre declined. This changed with the rise of choreographer Busby Berkeley, whom the New Yorker's Richard Brody calls the genius who created the classic musical, and built the genre on the tension between artifice and authenticity. Berkeley helped create an arresting visual language for the on-screen musical through fluid camera work, kaleidoscopic arrangements of dancers, and interesting camera angles. Meanwhile, in 1937, Disney released Snow White, the first full-length animated film, which was punctuated by song.
With a smile and a sigh.
Snow White's unprecedented success and creative approach directly influenced the era's most enduring movie musical masterpiece, 1939's The Wizard of Oz, which exemplified the musical's signature commitment to spectacle. From its costumes to its special effects to the use of Technicolor, still novel at the time.
I've never seen a horse like that before.
Now and never will again, I fancy.
On top of all this innovation, the Depression created an urgent emotional need for musicals. Many 30s musicals focused on upper-class characters in glamorous settings, allowing audiences to temporarily forget their troubles.
All my life I have promised my dresses to take them to Italy, and you must be in them.
Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers used dance to illustrate their characters' blossoming love. Child musical star Shirley Temple uplifted viewers with her sweetness and innocence.
On the good ship, lollipop, it's a sweet trip to a candy shop.
Yet while many of these favorites provided escapism,
Heaven, I'm in heaven.
others, especially Busby Berkeley's groundbreaking work, spoke directly to the darkness of the times.
With all the hits you've had, you ought to be worth plenty.
I ought to be, but I'm not. Did you ever hear of Wall Street?
Gold Diggers of 1933 features the haunting song Remember My Forgotten Man, looking at the plight of the disenfranchised, especially that of struggling World War I veterans whom the government had failed. These musicals that openly acknowledged current events revealed that many viewers weren't just looking to dodge their reality, but were eager for a way to confront their feelings about it.
Come on, let's get up and look for work. I hate starving in bed.
Name me a better place to starve.
Your stomach.
And envision a way through the hardship.
We never see headline about red line today. And when we see the landlord, we can look that guy right in the eye. Oh, we're in the money.
Martha Shearer at King's College London explains, it wasn't really until 1933 musicals such as 42nd Street, Gold Diggers of 1933, and Footlight Parade, where the Depression is literally part of the film's central component, that the narrative of the musical starts to really become successful.
You could have your choice of a dozen shows. A pretty girl like you?
Not with this depression.
1940s musicals provided a comforting reprieve from the hardships of World War II through their wholesome values and romantic happy endings.
On the avenue, Fifth Avenue.
Judy Garland's character's love for her hometown and Meet Me in St. Louis struck a chord with American families who couldn't be together due to the war.
Have yourself a merry little Christmas.
This intimate domestic movie, featuring neither show business nor over-the-top visual spectacle, proved that a musical could tell any kind of story.
They did not need to be professional performers. Anyone could sing and dance. They felt like it.
50s movie musicals were defined by their exuberant tone, the rise of Technicolor, and the dominance of MGM, which turned out beloved movies like Gene Kelly's and Stanley Donen's Singing in the Rain, and Vincent Minnelli's An American in Paris and The Bandwagon. But the overriding optimism was occasionally undermined by more troubling themes creeping in. 1954's A Star is Born examined the pain of addiction and self-destruction.
I thought I was the answer for Norman. But love isn't enough for him.
1956's Carousel explored domestic violence and featured one of the genre's first anti-heroes.
Why are you ashamed you loved Julie?
I ain't ashamed of anything.
Then why did you beat her?
And the protagonist of 1958's South Pacific is initially horrified to learn that her love interest has fathered half Polynesian children.
I'm their father.
And their mother was
60s musicals continue to vacillate between sweet sentimentality and more complex subject matter, sometimes in the same movie. 1965's wildly popular The Sound of Music, which replaced Gone with the Wind as the highest-grossing film ever, deals with the rise of Nazism in Austria.
Maybe the flag with the black spider on it makes people nervous.
But it also skirts the true horrors of this time, focusing instead on the power of song and the way the free-spirited Maria gives the Von Trapps a new lease on life.
These are a few of my favorite things.
In contrast, 1961's West Side Story, which was already memorable for its sophisticated music and lyrics, creative choreography, and invigorating camera angles, stood out most of all for its uncompromising tragedy.
loving is enough.
Not here. They won't let us be.
As this New York spin on the Romeo and Juliet tale drove home the ugliness of prejudice and hatred.
You all killed him, and my brother, and Riff. Not with bullets and guns, with hate.
This decade featured creative experimentation within the musical genre. French New Wave filmmaker Jacques Demy's works like The Umbrellas of Cherbourg combined a haunting operatic form with the vivid, joyful colors of a classic MGM style. Daring 70s musicals departed completely from their sweet and wholesome predecessors to tackle darker, more risque themes. With 1972's Cabaret, director Bob Fosse, on the heels of his 1969 box office failure, Sweet Charity, was determined to make a musical that was, in the words of actor Joel Grey, more adult, more relevant.
I'm gonna be a great film star. That is, if booze and sex don't get me first.
Unlike hyper-choreographed and polished earlier musicals, here the dancers were meant to look realistic, even rough around the edges. Fosse asked them to gain weight, not shave their legs, and pluck their eyebrows before drawing them on. And the film fully leaned into its provocative subject matter, like promiscuity.
I saw a film the other day about syphilis. Oh, it was too awful. I couldn't let a man touch me for a week.
Abortion.
There goes my fur coat.
And bisexuality.
Groom, Maximilian!
I do.
So do I.
1975's The Rocky Horror Picture Show and 1978's Grease also explored gender and sexuality.
I'm just a sweet transvestite.
With Grease even ridiculing its lead Sandy for being virginal and applauding her final transformation into a sexy bombshell.
Cause of power you're supplying, it's electrifying.
In 1979, Fosse's introspective All That Jazz explored the toxic workaholism, self-destruction, and disillusionment of the musical director.
It's showtime, folks.
An inversion of the traditional showbiz musical about the rise to success.
You're going out a youngster, but you've got to come back a star.
In the 80s, the emphasis in movie musicals shifted from singing and deeper commentary to dance.
I thought this was a party! Let's
While 1989's The Little Mermaid kicked off the Disney Renaissance and the rise of animated kids musicals in the 90s.
Can you paint with all the colors of the wind?
The only prominent, non-animated musical film to come out this decade was 1996's Evita, and it wasn't until the early 2000s that the adult movie musical regained its footing. 2001's Moulin Rouge was seen as a revamp of the genre, featuring covers and rock and pop mashups.
'Cause we are living in a material world. and I am a material girl.
This experimentation continued with other movies featuring different musical styles, from acoustic ballads to rap.
Now everybody from the 313, put your mother hands up and follow me.
2002's Chicago became the first musical to take home the Best Picture Oscar in over 30 years.
The name on everybody's lips is gonna be Roxy.
Many musicals that had previously only been on stage came to the screen. Made-for-TV musicals like High School Musical increased the genre's appeal to adolescent viewers.
We're all in this together.
And Buffy the Vampire Slayer's 2001 musical episode once more with feeling.
Life's a show, and we all play our parts.
Established a trend that later shows have since imitated with their own musical episodes. The decade ended with the beginning of Glee, a show about a high school singing club that captured that old school, wholesome musical energy.
Glee, by its very definition, is about opening yourself up to joy,
while also featuring plenty of current cover songs.
Roma, Roma, my gaga, ooh la la, want your bad romance.
Today, our culture has fully embraced its love of musicals, perhaps because prominent creators were influenced by the standouts of previous decades.
A big part of why they're sort of alive and well right now is because an entire generation grew up with their first stories being musicals and not even knowing that they were consuming musical theater.
The one that made me fall in love with musical films is Under the Sea in The Little Mermaid. I just remember being 9 years old and literally feeling weightless in the theater.
2016's La La Land, which took inspiration from too many classical musicals to count.
Singin' in the Rain, you know, the Fred and Ginger movies, the Umbrellas of Cherbourg, the Jacques Demy movies.
Became one of the 3 most nominated films in Oscar history. With Broadway's Hamilton, Lin-Manuel Miranda gave the genre new modern relevance by telling the story of the founding fathers through hip-hop music and primarily casting performers of color. And the film adaptation of Miranda's first musical, In the Heights, brings this sensibility to the screen.
I am Usnavi, and you probably never heard my name. Reports of my fame are greatly exaggerated.
Television networks now regularly air live musicals, and the constant of animated movie musicals for kids is now supplemented by live-action remakes of the older Disney catalog.
Prince Ali, fabulous, he, Ali Ababa.
Meanwhile, blockbusters like The Greatest Showman, A Star is Born, and pop musician biopics Rocket Man and Bohemian Rhapsody have proven that musicals can be cash cows.
Nothing draws a crowd quite like a crowd.
With all this popularity, critical acclaim, and awards recognition, the musical is no longer just the domain of the stereotypical theater geek, but has become undeniably mainstream. The musical genre can uplift us in dark times, offer a rallying cry, or deliver a bittersweet and eternal message about the value of love and loss.
Oh, I'll never love again. Never love again.
Most fundamentally, it gives visible form and validity to our imaginations, letting us believe in what seems impossible, and reminding us that our dreams are just as important, authentic, and real as the world we walk around in every day.
But it wasn't a dream. It was a place.
Hi everyone, I'm Susanna.
I'm Deborah, and we're the creators of The Take.
Please subscribe and tell us what you want our take on next.
This video is brought to you by Mubi, a streaming service we love. Every day, Mubi premieres a new film. Whether it's a movie you've been dying to see or one you've never heard of before, there is always something new to discover. So in this world where it's very easy to spend hours debating what you should watch, Mubi is like having a really cool friend with amazing taste in movies, making it so much easier for you. They feature hard-to-come-by masterpieces, indie festival darlings, influential art house and foreign films, lesser-known films by your favorite famous directors, and more. Plus, you can even download the films to watch offline, and there are no ads, ever. This month on Mubi, you can check out Wild Style. Considered the original hip-hop film, it captures the early energy of the music scene that would take over the world. The 1982 film is set in the South Bronx, highlighting a cultural revolution about to emerge. We can't recommend Mubi highly enough. You can try it out now for free for a whole month. Just click the link in the description below.